could start.
I come a little closer to sing it to you. Not all the Vincent type think the same. Some the Vincent type operate from a mainly alpha brainwave state. Others operate from a mainly theta brainwave state. This result is vast difference in personality, experience, and the kinds of conclusions one derives from those experiences. The Alpha Da Vinci will be much more athletic and outwardly focused. He may not seem so bright that is intellectually intelligent, but when you get him in a physical situation, he'll have an uncanny inner brilliance regarding how he moves his body, the words he chooses, the actions he makes. This guy can be a great somatic genius, meaning he's got it with regards to his physical presence, communication, or coordination. The Theta Da Vinci will be much dreamier. He will be the creative genius with potentially a clumsy physical presence. This Theta Da Vinci may have learned early on to avoid sports and physical activities because he's far too lost in thoughts to be good at athletics. The Theta Da Vincis tend to be great artists, inventors, and musicians. Sometimes they can be brilliant entrepreneurs, but gaining the respect of the employees can be a challenge because of their lack of outward focus. Whichever type of Da Vinci you identify with more easily, the goal is to find balance. If you're an Alpha Da Vinci, you would do well to shift your mind towards that dreamy theta creativity more often to gain the inspiration that awaits you there. If you are the dreamy theta type, you would do well to shift towards alpha to be more present and aware of the outer world and your physical expression with others so that you can communicate your inspiration into the world. The ideal center of your consciousness is the alpha theta border. This is approximately 7.8. The Schumann resonance. From here you have a cost, the inner inspiration, available through theta awareness and the outer charisma and grace of alpha functioning. But you also gain something much more powerful than just those two functions, alpha and theta. When your consciousness is centered on the Schumann resonance, you come alive, your mind expands, and your energy surges with life. This is the sweet spot of waking consciousness. Did you get it? Did you get it at all? I hope so.
Peace, love, and unity. Who doesn't want peace, love, and unity? You tell me. Dude, wake up.
Grab a new hot tip, get ready to get into action, and let's do something today that will make a difference tomorrow.
For thousands of years, people have lived tucked away, mingling in small circles and learning from the experts closest to them. Then, the internet came along and everything changed. A single network with the potential to connect every living person on the planet. As more and more people plugged in, our social ties flourished.
Although the roots of modern psychology go all the way back to ancient Greece, some of the most significant advances began in the 17th century with philosopher René Descartes. Unfortunately, his ideas were in direct opposition to the church's rule. Descartes risked his life by challenging the popular belief that human beings consist of a separate body and soul by proposing that behavior was similar to a machine that didn't need input from the soul. The fact that behavior could be tied to something physical like the body paved the way for modern science. Modern theories advanced further in the late 18th century when French psychologist Pierre Cabanis claimed that the consciousness relied on a connection between the body and the brain. According to Cabanis, once the cord between the two is cut, a human is no longer conscious. Of course, he had no way to actually test this theory because to do so would kill his test subject. Charles Darwin made great advancements in the study of human behavior when he published The Origin of the Species. In this book, Darwin posed the theory that humans, just like other animals, change their behavior to adapt to their environment in order to further the survival of the species.
Foundations of Science course at Michigan State University. Throughout this course, we'll repeatedly compare claims made in pseudoscientific manners compared to those that are scientifically based. As this course progresses, we will look at such topics as astrology versus astronomy, the lost continent of Atlantis versus plate tectonics, alchemy versus chemistry, and the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot versus ecology and evolution. What we will find is that by following the concepts of matter and those of energy and the different disciplines, we can form a framework that will allow you to critically think about the likelihood of these pseudoscientific claims. We're going to start this journey with the field of psychology. Psychology is the study of the human mind and how it functions. There are many different subdisciplines. For example, behavioral neuroscience, which looks at the biology behind thinking and feeling. Scientists in this field might investigate the effects of pharmaceuticals on brain function and then behavior. Developmental psychology, which looks at how thoughts and feelings change as you grow from a baby through adulthood and into old age and death. For example, how does your ability to learn change as you get older? Social psychology, which looks at how individual thoughts and feelings interact within group-level dynamics. And other subdisciplines include clinical psychology, personality psychology, industrial organizational psychology, education psychology, and health psychology. For this module, we'll be looking at a very specific aspect that falls under cognitive psychology, which looks at how people obtain, process, and store information. We will be focusing our attention on people's ability to observe and reason from their experiences. And for this, our pseudoscience comparison, we will be looking at these ideas with the context of witches. This will in turn allow us to see why science and critical thinking are important skills for people to have, and will set the stage for our comparison of science and pseudoscience for the rest of the course. So check out the rest of the materials in this week's module, and let's get started.
Personality. What is it? Are we born with it? Or does the environment affect it? How does it develop? Does it change over time? Can we measure and study it? What makes you you? These are some of the questions psychologists have struggled to answer. Debate is still continuing today. Some have defined personality as an individual's consistent patterns of feeling, thinking, and behaving. Psychologists have studied personality as a way to try to predict or explain behavior. In this section, we will discuss some of the theories of personality that have arisen in the last century. We'll look at the ideas of influential psychologists in 3 different approaches: the psychoanalytic theories, humanistic theories, and trait theories of personality. The psychoanalytical approach to personality and behavior was founded by Sigmund Freud. Other important psychologists using this approach were Alfred Adler and Carl Jung, both early followers of Freud. Psychoanalysts believe that personality is controlled by our subconscious thoughts, from experiences we cannot even consciously remember. In this way, our personality has been shaped by our past experiences, so we're really not in control of it. The humanistic approach to personality and behavior started to gain footing in the 1960s. In contrast to psychoanalytical theories, this approach suggested humans have free will. In this view, you are not stuck with an unchangeable personality, but are able to make decisions and changes to your thinking patterns. It is these underlying motivations that will contribute to your personality. Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers are well-known humanist personality figures whose personality theories we will study later in detail. The trait theory approach to personality started as a rejection of the popular psychoanalytical and humanistic views. This view incorporates many different ideas. Trait theory suggests that personality can be studied and described using a selection of traits. In this view, traits are defined as relatively enduring characteristics that influence our behavior across many situations. It was started by Gordon Allport. He came up with a list of over 4,000 adjectives that describe personality. Other trait psychologists, including Raymond Cattell, narrowed this list down to a few basic traits, which can be assigned to people in an attempt to describe their personality. While most of these theorists suggest that all people might be described by all traits, they propose that a few traits would be more dominant in different individuals. Modern personality tests usually use lists of questions that you would answer about yourself. By analyzing your answers, you can be assigned a general description of your personality. Proponents of this approach would suggest that you will be able to use this information to understand your behavior and why you act the way you do. Or perhaps you might even be able to make decisions about your own future. In the next lesson, we will discuss in detail the theorists and their theories and compare and study personality tests.
Remained local. Still, we find small groups of ambitious people learning from small circles of experts nearby. It's time we made the most of the web and started learning live with today's technology. Learn It Live connects you with the wealth of the world's knowledge and best learning opportunities live and online so you can achieve your true intellectual potential. Whether it's for training, certification, or for personal skill enhancement, Learn It Live connects you to experts across the globe and puts them just within your reach. Learn from the best, wherever you are, wherever they are. Click on the demo to learn a little bit more about Learn It Live.
Thank you so much for coming to visit our school, Dr. Shepard. All of us teachers are really excited to hear how we can use cognitive neuroscience to understand student motivation and emotion.
But of course, contemporary theories depict motivation largely in cognitive terms. Most motivational processes have cognitive components.
How so?
Well, self-efficacy, for example, refers to perceived capabilities to learn or perform behaviors at designated levels. It is a cognitive belief. Motivational processes may be represented in synaptic networks, as might processes involved in self-regulation, such as metacognition and goals.
Wow, this kind of neurophysiological research on motivation and self-regulation variables would help to bridge the gap between education and neuroscience.
Yes, so there are two kinds of neural counterparts of motivation: rewards and motivational states.
Aren't rewards a key component of behaviorism? Behaviors that are rewarded tend to be repeated in the future, right?
Yes, but cognitive and constructivist theories on motivation postulate that it is the expectation of reward, rather than reward itself, that motivates behavior. The brain has a system processing rewards. Many brain structures are involved, including the hypothalamus, prefrontal cortex, and amygdala. The brain produces its own rewards in the form of opiates that result in a natural high.
So, this suggests that the brain may be predisposed towards experiencing and sustaining pleasurable outcomes?
Precisely, the expectation that one may receive a reward for competent or improved performance can activate this pleasure network, which produces the neurotransmitter dopamine.
So, dopamine can be produced by the expectation of pleasure, anticipation of reward, as well as by the pleasure itself.
Yes, and dopamine increases or decreases when there is a discrepancy between expected and realized rewards, such as when a person expects a large reward but receives a small one.
Oh, so the dopamine system can help people adjust their expectations, which is a type of learning.
Indeed. However, dopamine production is idiosyncratic. The same level of reward or expectation of reward will not motivate all students uniformly, which suggests that additional brain processes are involved in motivation.
So, teachers who plan to use reward systems must learn what motivates each student and establish a reward system that can accommodate changes in students' preferences.
Exactly. Watch this video that further explains the effect of dopamine and the expectation of rewards.
Are you sick and tired of dealing with poor flexibility, poor posture, back problems, aching joints, being overweight, poor balance, stress, or just want to increase your sense of health and well-being?
This is a story about a voice and a voice hearer. And it begins with me as an anxious teenager leaving home to go to university. Now, these were happy days at first. I'd done well at school, expectations for me were high, and I eagerly entered the student life of lectures, parties, and traffic cone theft. Now, underneath this veneer, I was actually deeply unhappy and emotionally insular, but I was skilled at hiding it. And it was with considerable surprise when I was joined in my second term by a new presence, a disembodied voice which calmly narrated everything I did in the third person. She is reading, she is going to a lecture, she is leaving the room. It was neutral, banal, oddly companionate, although I did notice it sometimes mirrored my own unexpressed emotion. So, for example, if I was angry and had to hide it, which I often did, being very adept at concealing how I really felt, then the voice sounded frustrated, but otherwise it was neither sinister nor disturbing. Now, it was then that I made a fatal mistake in that I mentioned the voice to a friend, and she was horrified. Her implication was that I should immediately seek medical help, which I did, and which proved to be mistake number 2. Now, I spent some time telling the campus GP about what I perceived to be the real problem: anxiety, low self-worth, fears about the future, and was met with bored indifference until I mentioned the voice, upon which he dropped his pen, swung round, and began to question me with a show of real interest. And to be fair, I was desperate for interest and help, and I began to tell him about my strange commentator. And I always wish at this point the voice had said, "She is digging her own grave." I was referred to a psychiatrist who also took a grim view of the voices present, subsequently interpreting everything I said through a lens of latent insanity. So, for example, I was part of a student TV station that broadcast news bulletins around the campus. And during an appointment, which was running very late, I said, "I'm sorry, doctor, I've got to go. I'm reading the news at 6. Now, it's down in my medical records, Eleanor has delusions that she's a television news broadcaster." Now, it was at this point that events began to rapidly overtake me. A hospital admission followed, the first of many. A diagnosis of schizophrenia came next. And then, worst of all, a prolonged and toxic sense of hopelessness and despair about myself and my prospects that tormented me beyond endurance and drained me through humiliation, helplessness, and loss of self-respect into a shadow of myself. But having been encouraged to see the voice, not as an experience, but as a symptom, my fear and resistance towards it intensified. And this essentially represented taking an aggressive stance against my own mind, and in turn, the voices increased. One voice became 12 and grew progressively menacing and hostile, setting me bizarre tasks, ordering me to harm myself as I grew increasingly demoralized and disempowered. 2 years later, and I had the whole frenzied repertoire: terrifying voices, grotesque visions, bizarre, intractable delusions. My mental health status had been a catalyst for verbal abuse, discrimination, and physical and sexual assault. And I'd been told by my psychiatrist, "Eleanor, you would be better off with cancer because cancer is easier to cure than schizophrenia." I'd been labelled, I'd been medicated, and I'd been left. And by now, I was so tormented by my voices that I attempted to drill a hole in my head in order to get them out. Now, 6 minutes is not enough time to fully credit those good and generous people who fought with me and for me, and who waited to welcome me back from that agonized, lonely place. But together, they forged a blend of courage, creativity, integrity, and an unshakable belief that my shattered self could become healed and whole. And crucially, they helped me to understand what I'd always suspected, that my voices were a meaningful response to painful life events, particularly childhood events, and as such were not my enemies, but a source of insight into solvable emotional problems. And so, ultimately, I gathered together my splintered self, each fragment represented by a different voice. And I went back to psychiatry, only this time from the other side. I returned to study and gained the highest degree in psychology that the university had ever given, and 1 year later, the highest master's, which I always say isn't bad for a nutter. In fact, during my stats exam, one of the voices actually dictated the answers, which technically possibly counts as cheating. Thank you. I worked in the NHS, I spoke at conferences, I published book chapters and academic papers, and I argued, and continue to do so, that an important question in psychiatry shouldn't be what's wrong with you, but rather what's happened to you. And all the while, I listened to my voices, with whom I'd finally learned to live with peace and respect, and which in turn represented a growing sense of compassion, acceptance, and respect towards myself. I'm now very proud to be part of the International Hearing Voices movement, an initiative inspired by the work of Professor Marius Rom and Dr. Sondra Escher, which locates voice hearing as a creative and ingenious survival strategy, a sane reaction to insane circumstances, not as an abstract symptom of illness to be endured, but as a complex, significant, and meaningful experience to be explored. As Peter Levine has said, the human animal is a unique being endowed with an instinctual capacity to heal and the intellectual spirit to harness this innate capacity. In this respect, I would like the TED audience to be aware of two things. Firstly, that as members of society, there is no greater honour than facilitating that process for someone. And for survivors of distress and adversity, that we remember what lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are small matters compared to what lies within us. As a very wonderful doctor once said to me, "Don't tell me what other people have told you about yourself. Tell me about you." Thank you.
Okay, so here's the deal. There's a marshmallow. You can either wait, and I'll bring you back another one, so you can have two, or you can eat it now. So you can eat it now, or you can wait, and I'll bring you back two. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so I have this marshmallow, and you can eat it now, or if you wait a little bit, I'll bring back two for you to eat, okay? How you doing, Sam? Good, you've been eating. Okay, well, I'm gonna go and, I haven't found marshmallows yet, so I'm gonna look for some more, but you stay here, and if you haven't eaten that one, I'll bring you back another one, okay? I'll be right back. Hunter, you waited! You get two! Good job! You can eat it. You can eat them now.
Hi Musa. I've been invited today just as a service user, so someone that's gone from a journey from being admitted to the aftercare services of all the kind of different mental health services that were available to me. I mean, the statement that I made was that when someone's asking, you know, people are making comments out there about the NHS being etc. this or that, I would turn around and say that the NHS did save my life. You know, eventually, you know, the NHS did give me what I needed, but potentially, what you know, they gave me what I needed at that specific time. What's lacking potentially is the correct information being cascaded down to me as a young person to potentially maybe prevent that kind of stage that I got to. So more of a focus of being able to communicate directly with young people, and maybe not even those that are at risk, maybe just educating young people in general and explaining the consequences of certain behaviours or things that might happen as a result of what young people tend to do, I suppose, whether it's drugs, alcohol, etc., etc. The information is not as attractive or services are not attractive enough to grab my attention. I think that's where the difficulty is communicating to people that are of a young age and that are in need of services of the mental health. Also briefly touched upon the involvement of an application, a mental health application called My Journey, which is an application being developed by the Early Intervention for Psychosis Department in Surrey. So I had a bit of involvement in doing that as well. So I was just kind of A, telling my journey as it were, and B, explaining the My Journey application that we had out there as well. That's launching tomorrow, I think. So the main thing, and I think it's been repeated a lot, is that to improve youth services, I think there's a very old school mentality on kind of mental health issues. Number one, there's not a lot of education in society out there, so doing everything possible to educate people out there so it's not that taboo subject anymore. But as well as that, potentially getting young people to communicate with young people, or if not, finding effective ways to communicate to young people, i.e. through social media, or whether it's festivals or kind of in a more up-to-date way of communicating with people, which is technology, and that's the kind of format that I think that the NHS in general should kind of move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Arthur F. Carmazzi with a few of my favorite quotes. Fulfillment is taking your environment for what it is, and not for what it should be. Progress is thinking clearly through fulfillment and intelligently moving the environment to a higher level. Every force that moves us has either an opposing or supporting force it creates in those around us. To move ourselves to greatness, we must first learn how we are already moving others. Every system has a process, a beginning where something that was moves towards change, a middle where the actions taken influence other actions in the system, an end where all of the parts of the system have affected that change. This system already exists when we communicate with others. The question is, do we control the process? Leadership does not involve changing the mindset of the group, but in the cultivation of an environment that brings out the best and inspires the individuals in that group to do what needs to be done. The ability to do more than expected does not come from influencing others to do something they're not committed to, but rather to nurture a culture that motivates and even excites individuals to do what is required for the benefit of all. Our emotions are like chocolate chip cookies. They're made up of many ingredients. Some ingredients are sweet, some are not. But no good cookie has ever been made without mixing ingredients and hot temperatures. We all want a better place to work. Cooperation, fun, respect, and trust are fundamentals of our ideal employment vision. Yet, if we all have a similar vision, why can't we achieve it? The secret lies not in the vision, but in the multiple perceptions of how the vision should be accomplished. When we stop worrying about being right and move in accordance with our final objective, that is when we manifest greatness. Whoever came up with the idea that people don't like to work has forgotten the passion and excitement when they first started a job. It is not the work that hinders our passion. It is the circumstances that we perceive are preventing us from being successful at it. Our role as leaders is to assist others to feel successful in their roles. Our passion stems from the absolute belief that your actions may present an opportunity to become something more than you already are. To lead, we must manifest an environment that can turn these beliefs into tangible and measurable outcomes.
In this video, we'll introduce very basic concepts in classical conditioning by simulating Pavlov's experiments with dogs. Now you may be wondering, if I'm going to be dealing with human beings, why am I looking at a dog? The answer is that the same principles of behaviorism that apply to higher order animals also apply to us humans. So when it comes to classical conditioning, we aren't that much different from Rover here. We're presenting Rover with a stimulus here, a bell. When we ring the bell, there's no response in Rover. That's because dogs, just like human beings, are not naturally wired to have a response to a bell. Without conditioning, there is no response. Therefore, we call the bell a neutral stimulus. I can ring the bell repeatedly with no response from Rover. Next, we'll introduce Rover to a new stimulus, the sight of food and water. Rover's natural response to the sight of food and water is to salivate. He wasn't conditioned to have this reaction. It's natural, innate, or inborn, and automatic, not taught, not conditioned. So this stimulus is called an unconditioned stimulus, and Rover's response is called an unconditioned response. Next, we'll simulate Pavlov's experiment. We'll ring the bell, and then present Rover with food and water. Rover salivates, not because of the bell, which is a neutral stimulus, but because of the food, the unconditioned stimulus. Now we're going to repeat this process. If we repeatedly ring the bell before presenting Rover with food, he'll be conditioned to respond to the bell. Now Rover will salivate upon hearing the bell, even in the absence of food. This response has been conditioned. It's now a conditioned response, and the bell has become a conditioned stimulus. So, to recap, the bell started out as a neutral stimulus. The food was an unconditioned stimulus. When Rover salivated upon seeing the food, it was an unconditioned response. When we repeatedly paired the sound of the bell with the sight of food, Rover was finally conditioned to salivate upon hearing the bell. The bell has now become a conditioned stimulus for Rover, and salivating to the sound of the bell is a conditioned response in Rover. Behavioral theory tells us that our behaviors have been shaped or conditioned by past experiences in much the same way that Rover has been conditioned to salivate upon hearing that bell, and therefore behavior modification is possible through conditioning.
Hello, and welcome to the Evans Library Conducting Research series. In this module, we will discuss how to define your research topic. Defining your topic will help clarify your research focus, identify the main concepts and keywords to use in your research, and give direction to both your searches and your writing. Here are the 4 steps that will help you define your topic and focus your research. We will talk about each of these in this tutorial. First, state your topic as a question. Next, identify the main concepts in your questions. Then, brainstorm keywords using a concept map to help you visualize connections. And last, consider narrowing or broadening your topic if necessary to fit the assignment. A good way to begin defining your topic is to state your topic as a question. For example, if your topic is climate change, you might ask, what are the effects of climate change? Or, what is the impact of climate change on the environment? Or, what are the social and economic implications of climate change? Now that you have some more specific ideas, you can identify the main concepts in your questions. Highlight the important words. Now, begin with those main concepts and generate lists of synonyms, related terms, and similar concepts. You can often find fresh ideas in a reference resource like a thesaurus, dictionary, encyclopedia, or handbook. Concept maps are a visual display of your ideas and the relationships among them. They help clarify what you already know, but also get you thinking about your research in new ways. Here is a sample concept map that shows the synonyms, related terms, and similar concepts on the climate change topic. You may now be ready to begin your research using the terms that you've identified. However, if you're having trouble fitting all of your ideas within the scope of the assignment, consider narrowing your research topic. Limiting to the effects of climate change on farming is more specific, as is the impact of climate change on Florida's environment instead of the environment in general. On the other hand, if your thoughts on your chosen topic don't satisfy the requirements, try broadening your research topic. Global implications encompass more ideas than just social and economic implications.
From this page, you have a few options for finding what you are looking for in the DSM. By clicking on the title of the book, you can browse through the electronic version the same way you would browse the print version. You can select a chapter, such as eating disorders, and read through the same information you would get in the print version. All the blue text is a link, so you can quickly jump down the page to bulimia, or you can navigate to another section of the DSM. You can also browse the DSM alphabetically using Appendix E. If you are unsure of what chapter you are looking for, you can use Appendix E to find what you're searching for. Lastly, you can search the DSM from the Psychiatry Online homepage. Be sure to choose the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, from the drop-down box. Enter your search terms and click the red magnifying glass or hit enter. This will show you all the locations where your keywords show up within the DSM.
We hope that this session has been helpful to you. Please remember to ask a librarian for help with defining your research topic.
Concept mapping. In this module, you will learn what a concept map is and how to create one for your research. What is a concept map? A concept map is a good way to begin the research process. It can help you to graphically represent and organize ideas and show how they are related to each other. The concept map will help you translate your ideas into a manageable topic and generate questions to focus on in your research. Research is a creative process, involving both analysis, in which you take things apart, and synthesis, in which you put things together. Creating a concept map is a visual way of analyzing your topic, and after it is completed, it will help you to both synthesize a research question and give you the search terms to pursue it. Why use a concept map? A concept map can help you organize ideas and define a topic, develop keywords and synonyms, reveal patterns and themes between ideas, and generate search terms for your research. In our example, we will use the topic of vegetarianism to illustrate how to create a concept map. I'll begin by writing it down and then drawing a circle around it to illustrate that this is the main topic. Next, I will begin brainstorming ideas for the topic of vegetarianism. I'll begin with related subtopics, such as varieties of vegetarianism, ethics in diet, health benefits and concerns, the environment in diet, religion in diet, and demographics. The point of this first step is to identify issues that are related to my main topic, which I will represent with lines in the concept map. A good way to find related topics is by using an encyclopedia, such as the many that the library has available online, or even Wikipedia. I now want to delve deeper and identify examples or related ideas to my subtopics. For instance, Ethics and diet is a subtopic of vegetarianism, and animal treatment is an important example of it. Continuing to do this for all of my new subtopics, I now have an extended list of concepts to explore. We may not use all the information that we write down, but this approach lets us easily see the various relationships among our possible topics. Using the concept map to find information. Review the concept map to identify relationships between concepts, and to see if all the pieces fit together, or if anything is missing. Not completed, consider the concept map's many connections. Each is a dynamic relationship that may change according to point of view, current events, and many other variables. Exploring these relationships and what dependencies there are between each is a good way to generate a list of research questions for our topic, and to identify keywords and synonyms useful for our research. In summary, now you should know how to use a concept map to help you translate your ideas into a manageable topic, and generate questions to focus on in your research.
I received several requests to tell you a bit more about the difference between primary and secondary research methods, and explain when we use the first and when the second. Well, the most basic distinction between primary and secondary research is this. Primary research is when we use original data. It is simply put, new data. Secondary research is when we study the results of others. Because these results are often published in scientific journals and books, we also refer to this as a literature study. And because you often sit behind a desk reading these articles, it's also named desk research. Secondary research is basically the systematic review of existing knowledge. So when do scholars perform primary or secondary research? Well, often we do both in different stages of a larger study. Let's say I'm interested in the effects of fear appeals in anti-smoking campaigns. More specifically, I want to know if a Dutch anti-smoking campaign should make more use of them in order to become more effective. I will start by exploring the existing literature on the use of fear appeals, anti-smoking campaigns, health campaigns in general, studies into why people smoke, when people block fear appeals, etc. I systematically collect all of this secondary data, basically the research findings of others, and analyze these results in order to come up with some expectations of what would happen if we would use more fear appeals in Dutch anti-smoking campaigns. In some cases, if time, money or practicality forces us to limit ourselves to a literature study, this is where my research ends. But often, if I want to really understand something and delve deeper into the question, I want to study this further and in more detail. Existing studies might have been conducted in other countries, for instance. So, I'm wondering if these results will also be true in the Netherlands. Or, it's also possible no previous study has looked specifically at this target group or what happens over a prolonged period in time. In short, a review of the existing literature can leave us with 1,000 questions and things we want to check or explore in more detail. So now I need to conduct my own primary research. My desk research has left me with several research hypotheses that we will set out to prove or disprove with original data. If the research findings you find in the literature are reliable, I should be able to replicate them. This is why replication of existing studies, sometimes with only a small variation, is an important scientific tool. In order to be sure of what we know, we keep checking it and keep changing the research context slightly to see if that makes any difference. Of course, next to checking the reliability of existing data, primary research also allows us to radically expand on existing knowledge, by adding completely new research variables, leading to new insights into previously unexplored relationships. So in a nutshell, we usually start with secondary research. That's why, whenever we discuss research methods, we should never forget this important category. Many questions have already been asked and answered by scholars all over the world, and a systematic review of existing data will allow us to formulate hypotheses and more specific research questions. The introduction of digital search engines has greatly increased our ability to find and use existing studies, our ability to stand on the shoulders of giants, as it were. Famous words by Newton, and now the motto of Google Scholar. After we have studied existing knowledge, we test our expectations and further expand on existing knowledge by conducting our own primary research. If we have the time and money, that is.